Chodesh Tov. Every month we have the monthly lecture, and this month we have the honor to host Harry Moscow. This is very appropriate to our parshiyos that we are about to learn now. Harry Moscow has been involved. He's actually a father of a good friend of mine from many years ago in Yeshiva. And he is involved. He's a researcher. He's an author, and he also has special films that are all to do with the story of the Ark. We all know that there are special vessels that we read about in our parashiyos, and these vessels are very special, very unique, and very holy. And the big question is, where are they today? And especially when it comes to the Ark. Our Parsha, Parshas Truma, is the story of the Mishkan, which is basically the temple. It was a temporary temple for those days, but nevertheless, our Parsha isn't called Parshas HaMishkan. It's not called the temple, our Parsha. Our Parsha is called Truma, which refers to the donation that each and every person brought in order to build the Mishkan. And this is why it's so important, because this is our work. This is where we put in our effort in order to contribute to the Mishkan. And here's a living example where Harry went and searched the vessels of the Mishkan, the vessels of the temple. And in this way, he contributed to the building of the Mishkan. So it's going to be a great honor listening to the lecture tonight. And the way we're going to do it is the first part of the lecture is just going to be the lecture with the PowerPoint. And we'll have a 10-minute Q&A at the end of the lecture. After that, we have a short film. And I hope you all enjoy it. We've got also the special book, the Ark Report that Harry wrote, and everyone can purchase it here, special price, just 50 shekels. Yep, this is the book. And also, whoever's listening to us on Zoom and on Facebook Live, you are welcome to contact us or to leave your details in the chat, and we'll arrange the book for you. So I would like to invite Harry Moscow to enrich our lives with the story of the Ark.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Once every couple of years, I'm able to come to different places in Yerushalayim, the OU Center, and other places in Israel to actually lecture about this topic. And there are definitely, within that period, there's all kinds of new things that come up. By the way, you have to pardon I have a bit of a sinus allergy, so I may not be as clear as possible. I'll do my best. But I thank everybody for coming, everybody on Zoom, everybody on Facebook Live, etc. This is great. I'm right here. I don't even need a pen. I can just point. But it's one of those times where we're actually very close to Mashiach, to the times. So these types of lectures are gaining momentum in a whole bunch of different ways. And this is part of what I've been doing for quite a while. And it's sort of like a passion of mine. What started out as a hobby really turned into something much greater when we made Aliyah to Israel about 15 years ago. But it's great to be here at Chabad with my friend Levi and Michelle Gold. It's a great place, and it's a special time actually tonight in Rosh Chodesh. And like the Rabbi said, it's also Parshat Truma, where we learn about these things, the temple vessels, the vessels of the Mishkan. It's also special because we actually started on time, which is a real kiddush for a Chabad in general, and Chabad in Israel in particular. So, kol hakavod. Like I always say, everyone should put their phones just on, vibrate. That's okay. I wanted to, normally it's kind of dynamic where everybody's sort of participating, but I think in this case, what we'll do is I'll do the lecture, the presentation. Keep your questions in mind, they're very important. That's what I'm here for, to answer all your questions as well as I can about any of the vessels in the Beis Hamikdash, where they ended up, where they are today, the art in particular, and everything that has to do with the rebuilding of the third temple. That's my specialty in the book, etc. So, do you have that's fine. Everything seems to be in order. I just want to say thank you, just a quick thank you to Hashem, because this morning I'm actually staying at a place which is in Sheikh Jarrah, in East Jerusalem, overnight. I have meetings tomorrow, and today I had another important presentation earlier in the day, podcast, and I was like, I have to daven this morning at Shimon HaTzadik, the great the Kohen Gadol, who was Kohen Gadol there for 80 years in the Second Temple. So his kibbutz is right there in Sheikh Jarrah, and so I wanted to go for mates. And I slept in a little bit. I felt guilty, and I find out in today's news that there was a car that was they lit up a car on fire right over there. It was a big thing right at like 7 in the morning. I don't know. So thank God I didn't go, and I slept in. Everything in the Shemayim comes in the Tova. So yeah, that's why I'm here right now. So Baruch Hashem. So here it is, the art report. Getting right into it. It's the name of the book. It's available here or on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, etc. Where are the temple vessels? Okay, we'll go to the next one here. Okay, just a little bit about me. Investigative archaeologist. I founded Moscow Media, a touring company also 6 months before Corona, about 2.5 years ago. And it was great doing biblical archaeology tours, which of course any one of you can come by and ask me about. Now it's getting a little bit easier, thank God, to go on these tours. So that's very important. But basically, the company is Israel Advocacy. Basically using archaeology to argue our past, existence in Eretz Israel, and argue the land is ours and the press, etc. I have a press company, and I write for the Jerusalem Post as well. And films, which we'll get to over here, is a short documentary. And there's other things I've taken as well. I'm part of History Channel, and I do some shows. You can see them on my website, etc. Very interesting. Dark. Why is it important for you, for me, for everybody today? For one thing, I've determined that the Ark is, through my research over 25 years, and it's in the book, I've determined that the Ark really has not moved. In 2,700 years, it's in the same spot that it was when it was put down there by King Hosea, Hosea put it down there about 37 years before the destruction of the Bayis Rishon. Okay? The story is he actually was cleaning up the temple, and he found this scroll, this Torah scroll, where he was cleaning up the temple for all the idol worship. He was a big tzaddik. He became king at 8 years old. One of the things that he found was this Torah scroll. When he opened it up, it was a very ominous pasuk. It said that Bnei Israel is doing tshuva, but not to the point that that you can actually, this will be a permanent temple forever, and you should go ahead. And a hint was given to hide the ark. So he looked into it, and of course he found the chamber, like it says in the Rambam, in Hilchos Beis Mechira, below in the Temple Mount. Still today, there's about 4 floors of caverns. In one of those caverns was lowered down, according to my theory and according to the Maldives, etc., into the actual ark itself was lowered down. And it stayed there to this day. There are other theories, of course, which we'll get into, but the fact that it's there means that the western wall, the Kotel, is holy. When you say that the Shekhinah, the Kotel is holy, what makes it holy? That the ark is there. The ark is actually in Har Bayit still today. And that acts as like a magnet, just as it always has, to the Shekhinah, to the divine presence. And that's one of the reasons why it's important to us. The other reason why is that, of course, we need it in the third temple, which should be, God willing, coming soon. It has a lot of power. Obviously, it was used. It's very, very significant when it was, conquering Jericho and split the waters of the Jordan River, etc. So it has definitely a lot of not only just power of its own, spiritual power, but also it's I think in pop culture or Raiders of the Lost Ark, that kind of thing, it put into pop culture the importance of these vessels, the Ark especially. So it's still there today. It's still under there, and it's still one of those things that people imagine about, people think about once in a while, but it's still the essence of why the temple is there created in the first place, is to house the Ark, and there, but mainly the Ark, because it holds the Ten Commandments. Its primary function is to hold the Ten Commandments as given to Moses, and we'll get to that in a minute. By the way, I do go up there. Does anybody actually go up there on Temple Mount? Amazing. If you do, call Kavod. Officially, I have no comment, but unofficially, the presence of a Jew up there is very, if you know what you're doing, you know the halachot, you know what to stay away from, etc. I have those delineations, by the way, also in my book. But according to my theory, the Ark was actually located, the Holy of Holies, the Makom Mikdash, just to the southwest of the Dome of the Rock. And I'll prove why a little bit in a moment. But it's a fascinating thing. It's really exciting for me nowadays to actually be able to go up there. Last time I was up there, I think we done in Midka. It blew me away. It really very, very, very special times we live in. I actually discovered a tunnel, which is sort of by accident. It says in the Mishnah that there's a tunnel in Midot and Tamid. It says there's a tunnel that the Kohanim used to use, leading from the Beit HaMokeh when they became impure at night, used to walk down underneath the Birah, underneath the temple, the Heichal itself, all the way to the southern side, and exit there into a mikvah. Okay, and then they used to purify. The next day, go out to Yom, right, and wait, and then go back to their service, right? So this tunnel was found in 1983, 1982 by Meir Ben-Dov, who was an archaeologist. Basically, he wrote a book called The Shadow of the Temple, where he finds this. It's an incredible book. At any rate, that was my first inspiration. That if they're tunneling all the way to the southern part for this mikvah, for the Kohanim, that it doesn't really make sense that the Dome of the Rock is where the Holy of Holies is. That was what started my questioning. At any rate, so this tunnel actually exists today. You can see it underneath the monumental staircase in the Davidson Center. You guys know what I'm talking about, the Ophel area? So if you look down underneath, of course, it's all off, it's trespassing, it's just full of sensors. I found out the hard way. But it's absolutely fascinating. I have pictures of that as well. The opening of that tunnel into Mikvah, it goes all the way through. Now it's blocked up, but theoretically, if we were to unblock that, get permission from it, it goes right to the Prime Minister's office. And Bennett is in a good mood. We could actually find out where the Beit HaMokeh really is and the Makom Mikdash exactly. But that's a very important thing that's really out there. One of those tunnels. So I'll go on over here. How do we know that the Dome of the Rock is not the place of the Holy of Holies? It says in the prophet Yirmiyahu and Micah, it says, therefore, because of you, Sion will be turned over like a field, right? Sion, Kasadeh, Takaresh. A site of worship will be covered with trees. And the Tanakh always points to the Holy of Holies, right? The Tavir, you say, Kibit Sion takes it to heart. Sion really, the actual word Sion was first used as the Makom of Mikdash, the Makom of the Kodesh Kodashim, right? Arizal, the Maharsha says, well, here we learn that the spot of Sion, no structure will ever be built right on top of the Holy of Holies. So that rock that's inside the Dome of the Rock, it's not exactly the foundation stone, as everyone, the conventional opinion, put it that way, believes. But it's close to it. I mean, it's It's about 100 meters away or so, put it that way. That rock that's in there is just the summit of Har Moriah, okay? It's interesting. These are important things because when you're actually up there, you need to know where to go, where not to go. According to this theory, you can actually approach on the north side the stairs that go up. I'm not saying to do it, but it's one thing that's important. So it's a bit about the Ark and where it is, etc. And by the way, I'll just say something very interesting about that chamber. You know, you have, like, for instance, you hear these stories, the temple, the Knights Templar, right? In the mid ages, they went there, they were in charge of Har Bayit and Yerushalayim, the Crusaders. So they actually were on there, and they actually went looking for the Ark and other vessels in the Temple Mount. But what they were looking for this golden box, like it says in the Swiss Parsha, 2.5, but 1.5, you know, maybe 5 feet. But what they should have been looking for was a room, because it was actually lowered into a room with the same Kedusha, the way Shlomo Melech did this, and this is very, very interesting. It's great. I enjoy, saying it over, because most people don't realize this. It was lowered into a room with gold tiles with the same Kedusha as what was right directly above it, about 4 stories above it, as the Kodesh Kodeshim. So it's sitting there today because you need the presence of the Ark. I call it off-site. In order for the temple service to continue in the second temple and the rest of the first temple, right, when it was put down there, you need the presence of the Ark. For the coding to serve, to have the avoda, the Ark has to be there in some way, right? If it's not there, then you have a problem with actually bringing korbanot in that place. If the Mashiach comes tomorrow, or if you want to do a korban Pesach even without Mashiach, and we know the Makom Mizbeach, then you would need the Ark there in some way, because the Ark and the Mizbeach have to be there together. Otherwise, it's Heter Bamot. Otherwise, you can bring this whole idea of having Mizbeach and doing sacrifices not in the area of the Beis Hamikdash comes again. Like in the times of the Mishkan, when we went into Eretz Yisrael, there were some times when the Mishkan was in Gilgal and Lov and Dibon. So there, the Ark was not with the Mishkan, right? The Ark was with David HaMelech, Har Tzion. It was here in Beit Shemesh for a little bit. It was in other areas, over here, next to the Elvis place. What's that called? Kiryat Yearim. So it was there for 20 years. So you didn't have that. You didn't have the Mizbeach and the Ark together. So that led to, it says the Gemara, Heter Bamot. You don't have to bring your sacrifices to the Mizbech HaGadol, you can bring personal sacrifices in your backyard. So that's why, in some way, you actually had to have the Ark there, what I call off-site. So it's there, but it's directly underneath. Very interesting. So the whole time of the Second Temple, 420 years, the Ark was there, was just underneath there. Why, Nehemiah and Ezra Sofer was the Kohen Gadol, why they didn't bring it out? Is a very good question. When they were building the Second Temple, rebuilding it after the 70 years of exile, the reason why, in my opinion, is because they must have realized that, there's Yeridat Dorot. The Second Temple is not on the same level as the first. In fact, there were 5 things that were missing, as it says in the Gemara, on the Second Temple, for the First Temple. Anybody know what that? Well, I'll continue. 5 things are that, of course, the Ark, the Shekhinah. The Shekhinah was on a much lower level in the Second Temple than the first, like it says in the Tanya. The Shemel. Sorry?
The Shemel.
The what? Sorry?
Shemel.
Shemel. The sorry, I couldn't hear.
Shemel.
Sure, the Shemel, yeah, very good. Excellent. The fire that is there that descended from heaven, that was in the First Temple. And also the right? That's right, the Torah and the Kosher Mishpat, they were in between. They didn't line up. So the Shekhinah was not in the Second Temple the way it was in the first, but will be in the third. It says that all those 5 things will actually come back in the Third Temple. So that's very, very important to know, because it never says anywhere that the Ark really, like in black and white, that the ark will be in the third temple. It doesn't say in Yechezkel, if you look there, Mount Gibel to Mount Zion, but there are hints that it will be there. And one of those hints that says in Talmud Yirmiyahu and other places is that the third temple will have everything that the first temple had and the second. So those 5 things will return. God willing soon. So that's the ark, okay? And you can ask me more questions about it after this. In the meantime, where did the other vessels end up? Very, very interesting question, inspiring question, because things are really happening today. You'd be surprised, which I'll get into. So it's something I really enjoy doing. So I've researched it quite a bit over 20 years, even more. This is just a depiction. 70 AD, the Second Temple was destroyed by the Romans. 69 AD, 68, already they started hiding some of the vessels of the temple. That's alluded to also in other places. Josephus, the Kohanim. Yeah, because they knew already, right? The 10th Octavius already, they knew that the Romans are coming and it's going to be destroyed. So, it says in Chagiga, different areas of the Talmud, that actually each vessel was duplicated. There was duplicate and triplicate, because in case one of them became tummy or pure, etc. So there were 93 kingdoms in the base of Mikdash, but a lot of them were duplicated, etc., including the menorah and other the big things, the incense altars, etc. So there were some caves around Jerusalem. Those caves still exist today, and there's reason to believe, more than reason to believe. There's an incredible story, which I'll show you in the film, of an Israeli farmer that lived 100 years ago that found, I don't know if you know the story about the Chametz Chaim, it's in All for the Boss. It's documented, a true story, where this farmer fell into a cave here in Yerushalayim and found these items while he was plowing. That you'll see in the movie, Rish Hashem. Fascinating. So I think I actually have that location. There's another location that the Chametz Chaim also pointed out when this was brought to him, as you'll see, and it's right next to Har Zesim, which is in the Silwan area. Fascinating. So that's also being investigated. Not, by the way, when I was there, don't try this at home or anything, but the Arabs were not exactly friendly at the time. In fact, but you know what? The first ones to see me there, Shatach, told me, what, it's in your best interest. I went with, maybe I should have gone with Tzitzis and a keep or whatever, but to just get out as fast as you can, I appreciated that. But I got my pictures. Anyway, so this is a picture of one of these caves that they have these temple vessels in. So, what happened to the other ones? Okay, we know that Rome was destroyed the temple in Yerushalayim 70 AD. Then they took everything back, right? As Josephus says, Josephus Phineas took everything back to Rome and set everything up in a place called the Temple for Peace, really for the goddess of peace. It was set up on display for 400 years. Okay? Then it was sacked, there was a fire first, whatever. It was sacked by the Visigoths and the Vandals in the year 455. And then it was taken to, it says in, Josephus actually says, it was taken there to the capital of the Visigoths, which is Carthage, which is now in Tunis, Tunisia. Crossing ships, right? They took all the temple treasure. With them, it was there on display in Carthage about 80 years, 85 years. From there, it was taken to Syria, took over the area. The emperor was Syria, and it went back to Constantinople, okay, in a place called the Hippodrome. And we have all of this recorded. I have it in my new book as well. But there are various stories that definitely say the whole story. Very, very interesting stuff. It took the trip, all the vessels went, eventually ended up in present-day Istanbul, a place called the Hippodrome, with Justinian. Because who records all this says that they had a whole display, parade, etc. But what happened in the end? Things started to go not so good for Justinian, the emperor. So as one of the Jewish ministers, this is a fact, actually told him, listen, if you want your empire to Byzantine Empire to keep intact and stay for a long time, you better get rid of the vessels, because wherever they go, there's problems, to say the least, especially the Ark, okay? But leaving that out of it, the other vessels don't bring exactly the good fortune to the going. So he said, you know what, you're right. And he sent it back to, believe it or not, right here in Shalim, in a place called the Via Maria Church, which he built. That church, by the way, is located at the very end of the cargo. Where there's like a basketball court. You go down, there's the stairs that go down. Right? There's a parking lot there. Right? On the parking lot, if you look down, there's a bunch of columns. And right there, that's where this massive church was built. Really beautiful, actually, like a Sophia, what's it called? The Hagia Sophia, I think, in Istanbul. It's another massive church. It was built, Justinian. Now it's a mosque, unfortunately, or whatever. But he put everything into that church right here. What happens to the church? The church, there's a fire, and there's an earthquake over the years. It was about 1,400 years ago. And the Kili were moved from there to another church. I did a lot of research about that. I was in this new place, this church, and as the story goes, and it's true actually, I'll just make it here to another church in the area. Basically, the Southern Church, making a long story short, there are people today that know the treasure is in that church. What happened was in the 1950s, after the war, 50s, after the war, a Hebrew professor at University of Pneumatics, to assess the value of coins. He was called in by this church. They had found this huge pile of ancient coins, and they called him in to assess the value of it. And then they left. So this professor, who's no longer alive today, but he's survived by a wife and 2 children. So he actually he ended his job early after like 2 hours, it says in his memoirs. And he started looking around. He found this secret door, or a door that wasn't so obvious. And he goes down the stairs, he gets used to it, it's dark and dim. And he says, there's no question, these are articles from the temple, the second temple. No question about it. He was a smart guy, and he was he writes it down. He was in disbelief, etc. In the meantime, while he's down there, these priests or whatever come back and start yelling and screaming at him while you're down there, it's none of your business, etc. Get out, whatever. So the next day, he says, listen, if you let me back in, I can assess that too, maybe. And they said, what are you talking about? They denied the whole thing. But I know, based on my research, I know exactly where that is and the rooms down there. In other words, these places really exist. When the time comes, it hasn't been easy because it's under the purview of different. It's a little bit complicated, but there are people that know different embassies, etc. They know it's down there. So you have this. The time is coming. These things are coming out. Every couple of months something new comes out. If you have your finger, on the pulse. Sorry? Which church was it? Well, I can't say that. I would love to say, but I can't at the moment. Maybe in the future, but what's this? We're having things are coming out slowly in the press and what have you. That writing articles, etc. And so when it comes out, then I'll be able to publicize it more. But it's in the old city area. Put it there. Okay, the CIA and the Qumran tunnel. This picture I took myself actually before being arrested. You can't apologist unless you're like arrested at least once. You're not with your salt, So when I was with some fine colleagues, I managed to get it. This is in Qumran, cave number 11, which was really fascinating. Dr. Vendel Jones, which is, he did some incredible work in the 80s and 90s, etc. He found the incense, Torah, and a bunch of other things. There's a whole story there, an incredible story. I was supposed to be on his last excavation in the late 90s. It was very interesting. But he, there are still things going on today, by the way. That team is still down there, and we still go, and things are still happening. But he just found a reservoir, and he actually thought that the ark was there. That was his opinion. The ark came out with Tzidkiyahu, the last king of Yehuda, at the destruction of the first temple in 586 BC. So once that was destroyed, he actually tried to escape, as you know the story, through this incredibly long tunnel from his palace, 18 miles, it says, right? It's very Yamin, etc. So he gets out, and a lot of people that are unfortunate to say that he also brought out helium of the first temple with him into this tunnel. So this is where the copper scrolls comes in. These treasures that are there for the first temple already, going even further back. So the CIA, believe it or not, you ask yourself, it says here, what business does the CIA have in our, internal holy, artifacts, sacred artifacts? The answer is zero. They don't have any right. They're not really allowed to, but because there's a complicated relationship, and they're the two-state solution, and they give loan guarantees, and et cetera, politics. So they got extremely concerned that maybe the ark really would be found, and so they started monitoring, believe it or not, from 1992 to 95. They were monitoring as if it was a national threat, and to the point where they actually flew in one of the members, first class, to Langley, and asked him, "What are you digging for? What are you looking for?" And he told me that on the wall of the CIA was a huge map of Qumran. Every single cave where everything was, that's how interested they were. They were afraid that maybe something really would be found, and it would change the balance of power in the Middle East. Because technically Qumran is in the quote-unquote West Bank. It's over the Green Line. Maybe these things would be owned by the Palestinians. They would claim ownership. Anything's possible nowadays. Rewriting history. But they really took an interest to the point where they actually got the IAA, the Israel Antiquities Authority, to take the permit back, to actually cancel Villager's permit. And they gave him a really hard time. Not only that, the media, if you remember, and he was a tzaddik. He was a really very special person, B'nai Noach. But they really smeared him in the press, as they made him look like some kind of, eccentric, sort of like, if you know what he's doing, he's not the real McCoy. And it's a shame. But, they, to this day, obviously the media is very left-wing, etc. But these caves exist. Other theories of where the ark is besides the Temple Mount. Yes.
It's possible to make that printing larger. Can you?
I could, but I'd have to get into the.
Oh, okay.
They'd have to come out of the show, the actual presentation, and then modify it. I could. No problem. I can read it if you like. It says other theories of where the ark went. Mount Nebo is in modern day Jordan. I was actually up there, close by to the kever of Aaron HaKohen. I don't know if you know, it's amazing. It's actually you can go up there. Rosh Chodesh Av on the Ziyar side. It was very incredible. Went up with a bunch of Bedouins close to this place, Mount Nebo, and it says over there. There's a pasuk in Yirmiyahu that talks about the ark and other vessels in that area. So that's a credible theory. Ethiopia, of course, if you look at some of these channels, History Channel, Discovery, Travel Channel, they've all gone to Ethiopia to look for the ark over there. In Axum, this church, it says Lady Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion, near Eritrea, which I think is the capital. So there is something, by the way, there. There is something there. It's not the ark that the Salome in this week's Parsha. It's actually a replica. It's a little bit smaller. There was someone that was there about 100 years ago or so that records it. Now they've actually seen it. and I think it's empty. It was made in the 17th century, medieval, but they hold it as something very, very powerful, but representative of the real Aron Brut. South Africa, the Lendor tribe, we have now the DNA for the Kohanim, so they think it went there. The cathedral in France, I was there also in the south of France with the Knights Templar. The Vatican in Rome, the Ark is not there for sure. But other vessels, I truly believe, are there for many reasons. And my friend here, Dr. Calvo, we're working together with others, ambassadors and a whole legal team to find out. And there are other clues. I'm not going to say too much about it right now, but stay tuned. Seriously, that's the latest project for me. And there's a lot of incredible things that are happening in that regard, it should go in a very good way, in a peaceful way, and but that's something that's going to be very important coming up, very exciting. Under the Basilica, actually, around the tomb of this picture, by the way, is very interesting. It's the Cave of Souls. Does anybody know where that is? No? It's also not related to they probably got it from there. Greatest of the Lost Ark. But it's underneath the Dome of the Rock, right? Underneath the rock, there's a cave. And it's called the Cave of Souls. The weird thing is, this actual picture is where the carpet is actually removed. If you look at there's the red carpet. This part over here, don't quote me on this, but you can. Unofficially, comes out. It comes down. It's normally covered. But this one time, when they went to clean it, they took off the rug. This area comes out. There's another area also, leading down to extension of tunnels number 1 and number 3, which were mapped by Sir Charles Warren. Those tunnels may lead to the actual cavern where the Ark is being held. So, there's a lot of things that aren't really known by the public, but the Arabs themselves, a lot of them really do know this. And we'll go to this, okay. Well, I'll tell you a story before we go to the movie. There's a story whereby, there's 2 stories actually, of people that came close to finding what they thought was the Ark. One of them happened in 1981, around the time of the First Lebanon War, just after the First Lebanon War, where Rabbi Getz actually went into the Western Wall tunnels, and there's a place called, I don't know if you guys know, if you've been there, I'm sure you have, a gate over there, Warren's Gate. Are you familiar with that? Warren's Gate is it's an amazing place, which is big signs over there saying this is Keneged, this is actually across from the Holy of Holies, the closest spot. And there's a shul there, it's people learn there. I used to have dates there as well. In the mornings, the Beit Yeshiva davens there. So they, this time, in 1981, they actually went there. They went through this wall, and he says, that they basically, he has a movie. I have it here. You'll see it on film. That he really saw. He thinks he saw something glimmering, something like the Ark, etc. So, who knows what actually happened, but he did get close. Inside there's a cistern number 30, basically one of the ancient entrances to the Temple Mount. And so, once he did this, they started covering it up, etc. It wasn't so easy to keep that thing open, for very long. But the cistern exists, and that may be another way in to where the Ark may be. There's something else that happened, which is it's definitely worth speaking about, and that is in 1992. 1992, Rabbi Getz, who was a Rosh Hashanah, went in before Rosh Hashanah, when everyone's saying Slichot, in the Western Wall up above in the plaza, just before 12 midnight. He went in with a group, and I actually interviewed one of those guys who was with him. And he had, at that time, they were extending the tunnel to the north, of the Western Wall tunnels. They're extending it to the north. And So they had sort of like they had silent approval of the government to do this. They had all the tools also, the chisels, etc., the hammers. So they decided to, you know what, we're going to try it again to try and get through this to try to get through Warren's Gate and see what's over there. And they did. They broke through. No one found out at that time. But he ended up writing into the Lubavitch Rebbe. And I have this letter. I have these letters. What should he do? Should he actually go through it? Should he try to look for the ark? The Rebbe said no. The Rebbe said no. You'd think the Rebbe, who wants Mashiach, would have said yes. But he said no. He said when the time comes to find the ark, it's not going to be in a clandestine way. It's not going to be in secret. It's going to be with great fanfare and a simcha, and the world is going to rejoice. It'll be amazing. But he said, in a way, it's a bracha to just keep it there for now. You should be doing the opposite. He was saying, there's a little bit of mussar, a little harif. He said, try to keep it there instead of trying to bring it out. In the meantime, keep it where it is for the time being. And it's too dangerous for you, he said. It's sakana nefashot if you try to go in. Now, whether that means spiritually or physically, maybe both. But the Ramban, the Nachmanides, says that whoever finds the ark, it's a catalyst that Mashiach will come immediately. Like literally, the next day he'll reveal himself. It's a huge thing. But it's very dangerous. So he wrote back to the Rebbe, he said, listen, I'm willing to have the self-sacrifice. I'm willing to go in there. And the Rebbe said, no, don't do it. Fine. Anyway, he doesn't. Goes in, prepares himself, goes in there in the middle of the night. Anyway, Teddy Kollek leaked it to the press, unfortunately. The press comes down in the middle of the night, leaked it to the Arabs, and they're coming down with hatchets and knives, and he was literally got out by the, skin, like barely made it. He would have been lynched, for sure. And there were people that died, like there was a firefight, the soldiers came down. Then they put up the concrete that we see now. But he said he may have seen something. In the meantime, I believe 2 of his children passed away. But anyway, it wasn't so passionate. It wasn't so. You're going after the king, going after the temple vessels is one thing. But the ark itself, even if I were to get close, there's no way I would actually, even if they were to open it up for me, I personally wouldn't do it. Because you really need Gilui Eliyahu or Ruach HaKodesh or something. It's too dangerous. With the other kelim, you can look but don't touch type of thing. There's a lot of people that say the other kelim. There's issues of the Elah, of course, different things that you can't use, things that are donated, that are property hektish of the Beis Hamikdash. But if we find some of these things, if we find it in the cave, if we find it at the Vatican, things like that. So there is the different people, the different rabbanim that I asked said that it's probably deconsecrated. It was probably used by the Goyim in some way. And so, basically you can take it out and display it, etc. So these things are coming up, and it's very, very interesting to note that every single day we have this. We have a very, people like me. And I just did a podcast today, and I did another show from LA a couple of weeks ago, that people are getting really interested, sort of like a ground roots movement. People want to be inspired. They want, I find it, they want real leadership. They want, you know what I'm saying? They want to have something that they can, sort of trust in. That's just the bottom line. So people are getting into this. It gives people inspiration and hope. And that's what I plan on. That's what I hope to do. There's more here on my website. Everything I've been up to, staying out of trouble. And all the other things, the different movies and films, etc. You can contact me here, by the way. If you have any questions about this or the movie or anything like that, absolutely. This is something I could probably stay here all night and talk about. I had to actually trim this quite a bit. But should we do questions and answers now or after the film?
I think let's do it now and we'll end with the film.
Okay, super. So shoot away,
Where exactly on Hawaii do you believe it to be under?
Well, I will say that it's southwest of the Dome of the Rock for several reasons, which I mentioned in the book. According to archaeology and topography and history, the way the aqueducts are placed. There's many reasons why it's not the Dome of the Rock itself. It's to the southwest. There are many theories. There's Tugias Hagi's theory that it's actually right in front of the hotel, all the way to the south. And then there's Professor Coffin, who passed away. So his theory ended up being in the north, but over a place called the Dome of the Spirits. I was in touch with him as well. But they both canceled them. I found in my years of studying this, that both those theories canceled themselves out. And so there must be something else. And so I started, doing my own research, which I'm very good at actually. And I found this I'm not the only one actually that agrees with it. Moshe Sternbach, the chief rabbi, and also the Sephardi chief rabbi. They have their blessings as well to continue with this. There's a lot of people that are really of Shlomo Amar, who just said go to the Vatican. He was there too himself, obviously, amongst others, as you know. So yeah, for me to give you all the reasons, and I can't tell you exactly where, because one of the reasons is I went to up north, the Area, to Rabbi David Buchatzera, and at the time when I was first starting this book, I don't know, 8 years ago or so, 10 years ago, and he said, I told him where he actually knew about it. That's too surprising, I guess. But he said, don't pinpoint it. Even in your book and in your movies, the films, don't pinpoint exactly where it is. But in general, say, the truth of the matter is, it's a theory, right? Only Eliyahu Navi really knows where the ark is. I do the best I can. Obviously, I believe that that's where it is. But until Mashiach comes, until we have some, we'll put it this way: until we can actually get down there and explore, and we have the go-ahead spiritually and physically. Gashmius and Ruchnius, can we actually, no one's even allowed to, we can't do anything on our bite, right? It's forbidden.
I understand, I've been reading the papers, that recently there's been a lot of reporting that Arabs destroying some of the archaeology underneath. Now, we always think the Arabs are stupid, and they're really not. They're quite correct.
Right.
So obviously, if you feel, and other archaeologists feel, that some of the vessels are buried underneath, maybe they think so too, and is this part of it?
Sure.
Well,
they know it. They know the stories. They know it's there. Believe it or not, they actually respect the fact that the ark is under there. If you go way up to the walk, to the number, they'll deny it. But when push comes to shove, they will not go down there at all. Like, and they won't dare to do it.
So could these Arabs be like trying to destroy any archaeology, archaeological evidence that maybe you found in other Jewish archaeologists found?
For sure. They're doing that, but not in that area. They're doing it underneath Al-Aqsa Mosque, right? There's a tunnel there from the Holden Gates that goes up, right, from the double gate, the triple gate underneath. It's fascinating, but they are destroying that tunnel, as it says, in the second Midot, etc. It describes that tunnel, the sun, where all those masses came out the Pilgrim Road, right, which is now the city of David, which they found. So that goes all the way up with the mikvahs and everything up to Har Bayit. And once you're in there, though, and you're underground, right underneath the Al-Aqsa Mosque, so there they're destroying things. And they're making that, of course, they made a mosque, a huge mosque, in Solomon Stables, in the southeastern corner. And even in the Golden Gate, everybody know where that is? Right. So even that they're turning to a mosque. To Muslimize, Islamize, whatever the word is, the whole area, by calling the whole area Al-Aqsa. Yeah, you're right. Yes.
Where on top there are those three kapalot, is that what they're called? There's three small ones, they're like a rounded top.
Gates?
No, it's not a gate, I don't know.
Cupolas?
Where?
Yeah, where? On top of the temple.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there's
Right,
three of
oh,
them,
right,
okay?
yeah.
One of them, you cannot get close to. It will not allow you, your foot can be out there and it shakes, and it will not let you touch the ground where it's on. Yes, I've had this happen several times when I was up there.
That's probably on the north side. That's really,
No, that's what I was going to ask you, where are they?
yeah, they're all over.
Together.
There's different ones together. There's one close to the platform. There's the car.
This is close to the exit, not where you go off the steps and all of that, but close to the exit to the outside.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, that's called the Dome of Spirits. That's what they call it. There's one called Dome Joseph, Dome Moses, and this one Dome of Spirits is on the north side.
Amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Now I know that Gentiles, non-Jews, that actually did go and actually step on that rock.
Wow.
Jewish people, I don't know, but Gentiles, I know. I saw
would
this.
not let me. I mean, and I
Very
went all the way
interesting.
around it, and I could not get close to it.
That's very interesting.
There was an energy of it was freaky, but I'm an energy person like that, so
Okay.
the energy around it was amazing, really
Wow.
good. And I knew Mendel Jones. I worked with
Yeah.
him actually, yeah,
Wow, look at one.
many years back. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Great. Anybody else?
Yes,
Yeah.
how do you know that the NEA, which is near the parking
Right.
lot, which was where there is a yeshiva which is built on, was had a fire before the attack of the Persian destroyed it, because they were looking for the treasure,
Right.
the temple which was buried apparently over there. How do you know that they took these things, the important things, to different churches? How do you know that? What is the basis of that?
The basis is that the temple items actually exist in the other church. So they must have moved in. They must have known that either that the Persians are coming to take over, which they did. The Muslims are coming, and they took over. They must have said, yeah, this is the time. Either before or after the fire, they must have actually known. When's that fire? Exact year? I don't know the exact year. I just know that it did happen, and it could be in both spots.
But did you find a writing saying that they put?
Yeah, Oren Gutfeld. He actually found. He did a huge project. Oren.
He said that they took it, but they took.
Well, he says the year of the fire. Say eventually then can he be there or not?
I have a question about the NEA. I was a tour guide, and I know it's a little bit hard to find.
Yeah.
But there, I'm under the impression that the stones you're seeing could literally be part of the Beis Hamikdash. Is there any truth to that? Because I understand that Christians took pieces from the Beis Hamikdash to build their church. Is there truth to that?
I've never heard that. It would be hard for me to believe, just because Christianity came about officially hundreds of years later. As a religion, the Vatican was set up, I guess, 600 years after the destruction of the Vaishedi, right, in 70 AD. So it doesn't really make sense. They would certainly try to do that, I think, if they were to find stones. Like even today we have those boulders that were thrown off, that we see on the ground. Some of them still are blackened from fire. So they would probably try to take. I wouldn't be surprised. Taking some of those stones and put them in the Nia or wherever. But for the Beis Hamikdash itself, the building, I find that hard.
Because in a way, the Christians respected our Mokum HaMikdash more than the Muslims. The Muslims built. Christians wouldn't build on her.
But theologically, for Christians, it's Jesus foresaw the destruction of Jerusalem, so they wouldn't use the stones because it's not in their license. It goes according to that theology that they shouldn't build. I'm a tour guide as well. That's
part of the Beis Hamikdash.
By the way, since you're a guy, you probably know that there is a big column which is just in front of the Midrash of the sea.
Yes.
There is a rock like that.
Right.
And it's a big one. Yeah. It's one of the columns that they wanted to bring to the Nehar, which fell and broke partially. it gives us the size of the column.
Right, it was massive. It was massive. Thank you. Yes.
With the last 10 years. In the last 10 years or so, there's been tremendous amount of digging going on in Eretz Israel, and they've found a lot of artifacts pertaining to the Beit HaMikdash. Wouldn't that make the stuff in Italy a knockoff?
Well,
Because this is being the real thing here. They keep finding more and more and more. And we're going to keep finding more containing the Beit HaMikdash. And more, sooner or later, we're going to find stuff that belongs, in the Ark. And you're going to find, like you said, you're just talking about how close we are to the Ark. So what kind of substantiality does Rome have in claiming that they have the real thing? I personally think it's that they have the total knockoff.
well, when you say we're finding items pertaining to the temple, we're finding items that are not artifacts, they're not actual kelim of the temple itself, that were used in the temple, but they're, like you said, pertaining, they're indirectly related. We are finding those. You're right about that. That over Israel, a different they said at the time of the temple, they had shuls all over in the north, Spot and Spirit, etc. So yeah, those things are being found. It raises a whole other question of what they're doing with it. That's a whole thing that we won't get into now politically, but that's a major problem. What the IAA is doing with those items, that they're not actual vessels that have been used in the temple itself, but they're related, they're close. They're things that have to do with the incense and things like that. Different rituals that were done in different shuls around Israel at the time of the Beis Hamikdash. But we'll follow that up. It's a good point. Anybody else? You have time for one more, or should we play the next game? Do you want to turn the lights on?
Yeah, I'm turning them off.
Just do this.
That's on the.
What we have in the Middle East is a Palestinian Authority regime that doesn't even believe that Israel has a right to exist, that will not even put the geographical borders of Israel on its maps.
Right.
Every time I take a big group to Israel, one of the things I like to do is to get one of the Palestinian maps that I can get in the old city. I love to unfold it, and I'll ask the people who are with me, where's Israel on the map? They'll look and they'll look, and I'll say, can you find Israel on the map? The answer is no, they can't find it. And I ask them why. They say, I don't know. I said, because the people who built this map, they don't believe there is such a thing as Israel.
They claim we have no history here, that the temples never existed. But what if I were to tell you where the secret location of the temple treasures, King Solomon's treasures, are actually located? What would happen then? No one has ever cracked the code. No one has ever seen the map. Until now. There's a fascinating account from 100 years ago about a Jewish farmer in the Jerusalem area who was working on his land. Suddenly, he fell into a deep cave. When he got himself together, he saw an amazing collection of gold temple vessels and coins appearing in the light. The farmer realized he had discovered King Solomon's temple treasures, hidden on his very own property. He quickly covered up the entrance to the pit, and then created a map of its location. The farmer traveled to America and entrusted the secret map to Rabbi Herman of New York. After verifying the story, he sent it to the famous sage, the Chafetz Chaim in Poland, about what to do with these holy temple treasures. Should he take them out and reveal them to the world? The sage responded that we weren't ready for these holy artifacts yet, and destroyed the map. Many years passed, and the secret location of the cave was all but forgotten. Eventually, the farmer died, and Rabbi Herman suddenly remembered the story and the secret location of the farm and the cave. The clues and coordinates that are on that very map have been passed on to this day, and the time is arriving to finally reveal them. People love a good story, and the Palestinian narrative is a great story. The Palestinians love media, and their story is that there never was an Israel, or a temple for that matter. They use this propaganda to fuel their constant violence and to try and take ownership over ancient Jewish holy sites as their own. Why are the brave soldiers of the IDF prepared to lay down their lives on a daily basis to protect these holy sites? What's the point? Just to be given back and destroyed by the Palestinian Arabs?
What irritates me more than anything else is you'll hear Palestinian leader after Palestinian leader say that they don't recognize any Jewish claim to the Temple Mount at all.
And Arafat himself is on record claiming that the Jews have gotten, there was no such thing as a Jewish temple in Jerusalem, despite the fact that it's recognized in the Quran.
If there was no Israel and no temples, then why have there been so many archaeological discoveries that prove the exact opposite, especially recently on the southern slope of the Temple Mount?
You cannot say that there are no remains and then at the same time prevent any excavations. Let me excavate at the Temple Mount and I'll show you the proof.
How do you negotiate with people who don't think you're there? How do you make concessions with, how do you have agreement with people who do not believe you have the right to breathe your next breath?
Israel saw another surge in terror attacks this morning.
They're starting here with the Jews who live in the Middle East. And why they do not like us? Because they look at us, a democracy. They look at the values where we have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and they don't like what they see.
I can't bring myself to believe that we sort of driven back into the dark ages of the people being slaughtered. I can't see this, in modern day, I can't see this happening.
I have to make sure that the future of the Jewish state is safe and sound. That's my one goal. And I would like to be remembered as the protector of Israel. That's enough for me. Protector of Israel.
So why is there such an obsession to either find or deny the existence of these temple vessels? What is so significant about their discovery that the Arab media, the left, and even the CIA had an agenda to track excavations in Qumran and keep it all hidden there?
Why isn't the international community up in arms? Why do they seem to be not taking this seriously?
I believe that uncovering that farmer's cave now would seriously affect the sovereignty of Jerusalem and the Temple Mount, shifting the status quo permanently in favor of Israel.
Every archaeological find is important, and I absolutely believe in archaeology. I'm fascinated by it and have been my whole life. Things like the Dead Sea Scrolls, changed the whole way that people thought about Israel and the Bible and the world. And I think that was a real game changer.
We are facing part of the stronghold that used to house the upper part of the city of David in the time of Antiochus IV.
One of the great things about archaeology is that it has never controverted a biblical truth. It's always affirmed it. Archaeology is one of the best friends truth ever will have.
As it says in the Copper Scrolls, The temple treasures were ordered to be placed in that cave by the prophets before the destruction of Jerusalem almost 3,000 years ago. We now know where that farm is located today. The clues and the secret map are all here, and the path lies before us. The solution to stopping the terrorism and guaranteeing the future of Israel lies on that map and revealing what's in that cave. But who will be the one to actually go in after it? The chief rabbi of Israel? The Israeli Antiquities Authority? The Jordanian Waqf? The Prime Minister? What about the CIA? Or the Pope? Or maybe, just maybe, it's up to you.
Thank you very, very much. What an inspiring lecture. It was really, really amazing. And we would like to invite whoever wants to purchase a book. We have here, I think it's only 3 books that we actually have over here, but you're welcome to purchase it. And we will arrange it to be here at the Bet Chabad. Every Tuesday, the beginning of every English month, we have a monthly event. You're welcome to follow our Facebook page and to get notified. Thank you very much, and Chodesh Tov.